Welcome to the Rare Element Podcast. I'm your host, Lucy Vaughn. This season begins with a story I've never told in full. A story about contact, the moment I realized that memory isn't only personal, it's collective. This first season of the Rare Element is a journey into the hidden, into the ways contact, magic, and memory shape our lives. I'll be sitting down with magicians, Freemasons, mystics, and guardians of ancient traditions, where we explore what happens when a person crosses the invisible threshold between what's known and what's forbidden. But before we go there, I want to tell you where this all began. It begins in Kansas with a little girl, a wheat field, and a window left open to the stars. This podcast explores contact, not just with extraterrestrial life, but with the hidden memory, personal power, and the mysterious forces that shape who we become. And this first story, ladies and gentlemen, this one is mine. Let me tell you a story. Let's go back to a time in my life when I'm about 5 years old. It's a summer evening, and I feel very peaceful. I had just taken my evening bath. I'm in my soft and cozy pajamas, and I feel so very relaxed. I'm looking out my window, and it's twilight. The curtains are gently blowing in the breeze. Summer. The cicadas are buzzing. The sound of cicadas was very therapeutic to me and soothing. To this day, I miss that sound. Our house is so quiet, and my parents are already asleep. I recall the time had just changed for the summer because we were going to bed when the sun is still up. And at that age, I remember wanting to play more, wanting to go outside and play a lot more. I'm in my bed, just restless, but relaxed at the same time. I loved our little house out on the Kansas prairies. I remember I really did not like being in my room. I really didn't like being there. It made me feel very sad and lonely. I remember staring out the ceiling and the curtains, feeling relaxed and sleepy. I began to doze off to sleep, and I began waking up to a rustling sound. I hear the doorknob begin to twist and screech open. Someone comes in, and I recall them sitting on my bed. That moment, I feel scared and uneasy. I feel sick to my stomach, and there's a tightness in my throat and in my tummy. And I just do not want to be there. I feel so sick and do not want to be there in that moment in time. I do my best to close my eyes and to pretend I'm not there, and pretend that person's not there. In that moment, there's a bright white light that flashes into my window. And this light is warm and cheery. I know somebody's there, and I'm excited to see them. There's a bright flash, even brighter than the light that's already showing. And there's these two figures of light. I want to say shadows of light, less brighter than the light that's filling the room. They begin to take form. One is very tall figure. I'm going to call this first figure a she and identify her as Winifred, because as a child, that's how I knew her and identified her as. She's very tall. She likes to wear a dark cape with the dramatic queen kind of cape, so kind of where it's caping around her head, gown with a buckle that cinches at her waist, and it has two triangles, one stacked on each other vertically, and they clip together. It's the symbol of the group that they all work in together. Her head is very skeletal and stoic. She has very insect features, like a mantis head, except for she has horns. These horns stick out. They're really long. It's almost like a goat horns on a goat head, but it's on a praying mantis head. And she has these big, dark bug eyes, mantis eyes. They're not revealed like regular mantis eyes. They're covered with lids, and she's just very stoic and skeletal. Her skin is pale white, and she just stands there very stoically. The other figure is about 4 feet tall, about my height, the average height of a 5-year-old. He very simply looks like a gray alien, except for a few different features. Black, like a typical gray alien. He has human eyes that have pupils and irises, and he has muscle mass to his body. He is a hybrid gray alien that has human DNA. Remember him as being a he and identify him as Thomas. They're both standing there. Thomas steps forward. Winifred is overseeing the visit, but she stands in the background. And I remember her being in the dark, in a shadow in the corner of the room, while Thomas is interacting with me. I know I can sense that they're there for something that Thomas is not too happy about. He's not very pleased about, but it's something that has to be done. I can feel his care and his concern. And she tells him that it's time to remove my memories. Thomas is looking at me with his big eyes, and I can feel his sadness. He's doing his best to reassure me that this is for my own safety and good, and that it's just only going to be temporary, and that I'm very special. And he communicates that he loves me, that I'm going to do great things one day. As he says that, he has my hands in his hands, and his hands begin to glow a bright bluish green. It's very warm. I can see this light also shining through my hand, and I can feel it going up my arms, traveling up my chest, up my throat, up my neck, to my head, and my forehead. And at that moment, I can feel my forehead getting warm, and there's a greenish bluish light pulsating on my forehead, and I see these. They first come out as little like wisps of green energy, of light, and they begin to form these greenish, bluish, beautiful butterflies. And this color is not a color I've ever seen here on this planet, because it doesn't exist here, and there's not the right frequencies, but I'm able to see it when I interact with these beings. I think it's something about them where this hue and shade is allowed to be present. I can tell Thomas is making this a very fun and making it entertaining and cheery experience, and not traumatizing and scary. So he opens his mouth, and the little wispy butterflies flow into his mouth. It makes me giggle, and then he swallows them, and then they go into his belly, and I can see his belly glowing with the little flickering light, green bluish light in there, with the butterflies floating around. And he always had his way of making things fun and cheery. Our interaction had a lot to do with different activities and teaching experiments, I would like to say. His job as having human DNA was being able to connect with me and to reassure me and to make the process more suitable for me. And that's kind of why Winifred would stay in the background, because her nature was more cold and sterile. Her beings don't have that emotional human connection that the gray alien hybrids are able to have with us humans. I start to feel lightheaded, feel really tired and exhausted. I remember kind of my body starting to slide down onto the floor. I remember whispering to him, "I don't want to forget you guys." And then I forgot, or at least I thought I did.
You know what? They told me to be quiet. They said power is dangerous. So you know what? I made it look good. Everything I create begins with one belief: that beauty and power were never meant to be separated. that desire isn't dirty or dangerous, it's divine. They said original sin was the fall of mankind, but it turns out it was just the rise of woman. I learned that good was just another word for small. I don't do nice, I do honest, I do beautiful, I do whatever the hell I want. Every collection I create, every word I write, is a middle finger wrapped in velvet. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. You're waking up, dear. Babe, this collection is for those who dare to feel deeply and live without apology. If you know what that feels like, then you know what? You already belong here. This is Original Sin, where power gets dressed in red, and truth always looks better in heels. Visit LucyVaughn.com to discover Original Sin, the collection, the movement, the services, the awakening, and see what they tried to warn you about.
The forgetting was not peace. It was silence. It was like a hollow space I could never quite name. When I tried to tell my family, they told me it was a dream, that it was not real. When I said it wasn't, they said I was imagining things, that I was delusional. Yet, I knew something had happened, because in my dreams, they kept coming back. The same light, the same faces, the same feeling. That same feeling that I was being watched. It took me years and lots of therapy before I could see things differently. Maybe they weren't just visitors. Maybe they were watchers. Every culture speaks of them. Angels, guardians, the hidden ones. The Masons have their own symbols for them. The magicians call them intelligences. But maybe they are all the same presence. The unseen eyes that appear when something important is about to awaken. If I was being watched, then maybe the real question isn't why me? Maybe it's for what? Because what followed that night wasn't fear. It was a hunger to remember, to create, to build something that could not be erased and would last beyond this lifetime. That question, what for, is what eventually brought me to the world of the occult, to magic, to the temple at Rivendell, to the men and women who work not to forget, but to remember. People like Poke Runyon, founder of the Order Templi Astarte, and others who carry the legacy of ancient traditions, masonry, and magic. Because every context story, whether it comes from the stars or from ritual, carries the same message. You are being invited to remember what you already are, both ritual and magic. There are voices you'll hear this season on the Rare Element, not as teachers, but as witnesses. You are being invited to remember what you already are. I said, I don't want to forget you. And now I understand what I really meant was, I won't let us forget. This is the Rare Element. In the next episode, I'll sit down with magician and filmmaker Poke Runyon to talk about contact, legacy, and what it means to build a temple that outlasts time. Until then, remember, you are never alone. This is the Rare Element.
New episodes drop every Thursday. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, you are never alone.